today we're working on servers. A server, actually a old server. This is a Dell 1900. How the heck does this have anything to do with music? Not really, but it sort of does. My goal here is to create a system that's called FreeNAS. It's spelled free and NAS, N-A-S, network attached storage. And it's a Linux distro, free of course, hence the name free. It uses this type of file system called ZFS. So ZFS, I think it relatively came out in 2010. It was developed by Sun Microsystems. And honestly, I do not believe there's an actual meaning, but I think it has something to do with a zero file system. Would potentially call it, what do they call it, a backronym. Means behind the scenes type of acronym, which stands for zettabyte file system. In all honesty, it's a very good file system to use when you do type of network attached storage, or what my goal here is, I want to do a SAN, and the type of storage or that I'm looking to do is I want to basically put ZFS on this thing and eventually tie it to an ESXi server I have and actually have a true SAN device. Now, I think I could do it with this Dell 1900. Now, how does this all fall back into music, you ask? Well, the whole reason why I want to do this is because I want to be able to access I've collected so much samples and stuff in the past years and projects that I just want to have a reliable source to store stuff, and I do not want to use the cloud. I work IT security for a living, and the cloud is the most unsecure system that you can use unless you use some type of encryption. However, I do use the cloud, but I use it for transferring files, but I don't store personal stuff on cloud. But I also use it for, host like, training videos, tutorial videos, just things that I don't really care about if someone sees or not. That's what I use the cloud for. So getting back to this Dell 1900, so what's cool about this thing here? Well, it comes with this old RAID 5 array drive bay thing, and I have a bunch of extra 500 gig hard drives. Now, in order to make this work, I have to take out the old RAID card. You can see I did that right here, and it lived right here. So hopefully you can see that, and I'll make that in the video here. And so it slid in these old brackets, and I pulled that out, and you can see what it looks like. I tell you what, these Perc 6i's, or whatever you want to call them, 5i's, whatever, they're turds, man. They are absolute turds. They will be your bottleneck in any type of RAID or ZFS setup. You just do not want to use these. Just throw them away. Or sell them on eBay or whatever. They're absolutely useless, and what I have decided to use is I'm using this other card, and all it is just a card to allow for extra connections for SATA. That's all I'm doing, and it's a PCI card. It's an older card. If I had the PCI Express card, I would have gotten that one instead, but then again, this is all I have. I'm just kind of a makeshift project I'm doing, so I'm just using what I have. And this is a really nice card. I think I got it on Amazon for maybe about 30 bucks. And I think the reason why it was so expensive was because it was PCI. I was trying to do for an older server, but it just didn't ever work, so it fits in here and perfect. So this, it's got 4 SATA ports on it, and it's got 2 front external SATA ports. That will just be perfect for what I need. So I'm gonna fit that right in here, and this it looks like this will work. This is an extended PCI slot, server PCI, so I think it'll work in that. Last time I worked on a server, I think you can do that, so don't get me wrong there. And then I'm just gonna fill this guy up with nothing but 500 gig hard drives. That's all I have right now, and eventually I'll upgrade to something better and bigger. And the cool thing about FreeNAS is it has the ability to do caching, or caching. It depends on how you want to pronounce it. Tomato, tomato. And the cool thing is I'm going to put a nice SSD, and I'm going to put it in the front up here on one of these drives. Hopefully, I'll be able to use it in line with all my drives. We're going back to this RAID cards deal here. And the reason why you want to take out the RAID card, I kind of lost track of my thoughts here, but the reason why you want to take out the RAID card is the way ZFS works with FreeNAS is it is a software type of RAID. And a lot of people will even go even further and say that your card, your RAID card, is software RAID. It's actually a piece of software embedded on this card, has ability to do RAID control. It controls the disk. It is software that's written to this card. There is no such thing as hardware RAID in its own definition. Yes, you have a hardware RAID card, but all hardware RAID cards are controlled by software. So in that theory, you have what you call FreeNAS, which took that a little bit further, and it does its own RAID. In order to do ZFS, or zero, whatever you want to call it, zettabyte file system, you have to use a type of RAID card is not controlled, that is not a hardware RAID card. You want actual OS from FreeNAS to do all the work. You don't want the card to do the work. You just need it to pass through. It's basically a pass-through card is what you want to call it. That makes sense. Serial ATA pass-through card. Basically, what we're going for here is we're going for a type of terminology that's called block storage. Now, what is block storage? Block storage is basically raw disk in its own form, unformatted and untouched, but it is accessed by a system that is outside of it, connected through network or SCSI, iSCSI, whatever you want to call it, usually fiber optic or whatever, and 9 times 10 it's going to be network. Or if you have some weird type of daisy chain SCSI cable, backplane cables, where usually what they're called, those are the type of systems that will access this, and it'll take all these disks and format it to their file system, and it's controlled on the other systems. So that's why you would call this block storage. So then again, getting off track, what am I doing here? So my hope is that after I put in all these drives, I'm gonna put in all the drives in here, I'm gonna stack them up, put them in there, and then I have my SSD, plug it in, and then I'm gonna install the FreeNAS OS, and hopefully this will work. And I think it will. I read on a forum that some guy was able to do it, but he had to take out the RAID card. So, and I'm not using, I also took out the old SAS drives. You know, you're thinking, yeah, they're faster drives, give you faster performance, but I'm gonna use them in something else. I just want this to be, just basically, this is just gonna be storage, really. So I'll eventually speed it up later, and I get some, what I'm eventually gonna go for is just like some really nice, you know, Western Digital black drives. Here's one right here. This is what it looks like. And they're pretty good, especially if you stack them up and you do like a RAID 10, and that's what I'm really going to try to go for in the ZFS. You'll get some pretty good performance. So who knows? I mean, this is an old machine. I'm not really expecting to get much for performance, but we'll see. My dream is here, and my whole goal in explaining all of this stuff is what I want to do is I want to be able to access samples from a file server or a block storage type of server called SAN, a storage area network. Is basically the meaning of the SAN. But anyways, so this thing is loaded to the teeth. I've also put in special fans in this thing. I've replaced all the fans, and I'm using these. Shoot, I spent some money on these fans. Probably about $80 in just fans. And there are a type of fan where they're extra quiet, and this thing is really quiet. When I first started this thing, it was really loud. So I put in all these fans. I actually had to solder in all the connections, resolder them, and there was an article I found that explained the pinout on these things because all the wiring was different, but it worked. So I'm using there, so I got 3 fans up here, a fan here, a fan there, and then it's loaded the teeth with memory. It's like 32 gigs of memory, but it's old memory. It's the 266 a DDR2 type of RAM is what I'm using. It's standard in these type of older file server type of systems, but hopefully this will work. Yeah, I got all the drives bays, and you don't really need that much power for FreeNAS in theory. I've seen some people, they put a lot of stuff in FreeNAS, so who knows. This is it for today, and that's what I'm doing, and I'll report back and see what happens.